Yeah, well, when I was sprinting, I used to watch athletics all the time. And I think the person that really done it for me at the time was there was Linford Christie, who was the main one for me.
Remember
Linford
him?
Christie had a beautiful physique. He wasn't crazy muscular, but he just had a nice tight physique. And I was like, wow, I'd love to have a physique like that.
You share a little bit of your background, where you're from, how you got into bodybuilding, and how you became such a well-known fitness celebrity in the world, and kind of where you're going today. So,
Right, right. So, with bodybuilding, I didn't actually get into bodybuilding immediately. I think for me, as a kid, I was very much into fitness, but I started off sprinting. It was one of those where, unlike today, in my era, all the kids they'll be outside running up and down all the time. I was never in the house. Every time I went into the house, I was just covered in dirt because I'd just be out running about all the time. So every time me and my friends would be racing, I found that I was winning a lot of the races. And I kind of thought to myself, maybe I might have something here. So when I used to compete in events at school, like 100 meters and 200 meters, I I kept winning, getting lots of first place medals, and then eventually I'd started to compete into small tournaments in London, and then eventually I started to compete further up a field up north, Manchester, Norwich, and different stadiums. And I really wanted to keep this up, but I used to live with my dad, and he was, I don't know, let's say I didn't live in an enriched family. We didn't have much money, and my dad couldn't afford for me to compete in different places. He couldn't, because I wasn't getting any money. I wasn't sponsored. So my dad asked me to give it up because he couldn't afford to pay for extra clothes and travel and that sort of thing. I lived in North London, and at the time there was a lot of crime that was going on. A lot of my friends were crooks as well. I was sort of almost venturing in that area. I got up to no good a few times, and my dad could see what was going on, and he didn't want me hanging out with that crowd. So he said, all right, I know you're really into fitness. What I'll do for you is I'll buy you some weights, and I want you to just stay in your room and train. I don't want you hanging out with those people. So, he saved up some money, bought me some weights, and then I just started to play around with the weights to see what I could develop with them. And I didn't really think much of it. It was just a case of playing with the weights in hope that maybe something would happen. And when I would go out with friends would be like, wow, I could see a little transformation happening. And I was like, I was pretty surprised. I thought they were probably mocking me or playing around with me because they knew I was really trying to build a body. And no, I just found that they were pretty serious, and I was starting to get a little bit of attention from the ladies as I started to approach the late teens. And it kind of made me a bit more interested to really keep it up because, for something that I would do as a pastime, I started to notice that I started to get little changes in my body. Also, every bit of pocket money I would get, I used to buy magazines. I didn't really get much pocket money. I would get, I think, about £1 a week. Most of my friends were getting maybe 20, £25 a week. I would get £1. So once a month, I would buy a magazine with that £1. It was everything. It was the Holy Grail. It was everything. I'd be reading every little bit of detail, and so I'd buy magazines, and I'd try and read as much on the different types of proteins there were in there. I was thinking that protein in there was the answer to everything. Like,
No,
you'd have a picture
that
of.
was the whole magazine component. Did you have any particular athletes that you admired or influenced you, or that you wanted to kind of aspire to be like at that time?
Yeah, well, when I was sprinting, I used to watch athletics all the time. And I think the person that really done it for me at the time was there was Linford Christie, who was the main one for me.
Remember
Linford
him?
Christie he had a beautiful physique. He wasn't crazy muscular, but he just had a nice tight physique. And I was like, wow, I'd love to have a physique like that. So you know, I did, that was like one of the things that really worked for me. But then when I started to get the bodybuilding magazines, I saw that it was a lot more exaggerated. I was like, wow, like his physique is great, but this is achievable. And all I need is some whey protein by Muscle Tech.
Right, of course.
I can't remember who the other brands were, but Muscle Tech was really high on top there.
Designer whey protein, I guess, Dan Duquesne's product that he built was big. And then EOS at the time from, I think were the big brands back in around that time.
Yeah. And the face of those were people like Sean Ray. I remember seeing Paul Dillette in the magazines a few times, and but Kevin Levrone, Sean Ray, and Flex Wheeler were just like my heroes.
Sean Ray was my favorite physique growing up because he was about my height. I'm a short guy, so I'm only 5'8", and Sean I think is even a little bit shorter than me, and had that just full muscle belly look. And then Flex is just. I think Flex never really got the maximum out of his potential. I thought he had probably the most potential in the sport, just the lines and the muscle bellies. But of course, Ronnie Coleman was around there, and that was a difficult guy to beat.
I know, right? I know. Wow, Ronnie. I think Ronnie struggled for a bit, but then once he found what he was missing, whatever it might be, then that was it. He just dominated throughout. Do
you think that the sprinting contributed as a foundational component, and maybe motor development or physical development as a foundational component that contributed to why you have, such an aesthetic physique? Like for me, watching sprinters run, if you haven't had the opportunity to go to a track and a field event and watch world-class sprinters run, I think everybody should do so. Because you really see what it looks like when humans are working their entire body in perfect unison. It's beautiful. It's just it's an extraordinary experience, and you kind of get an insight about like just how poor the average person's motor coordination is. You see that, you go, okay, that looks like, it's like horses running. Or so it's transcendent. And that's what I love about sport at the highest levels. It becomes art. It's really an art in its finest form. So going back to the question, did you feel that was a contributing component, or it was just luck of the draw?
No, I think it was definitely a very strong foundation for me, really, because when I was sprinting, I was always questioning, how can I get better? I really want to know. So although I was sprinting and that was my sport, I used to jog around the park. I used to think, I didn't understand exactly what I needed to do to be fast at sprinting. All I knew was I needed to be fit. So I used to eat whatever fruits and vegetables I can eat. I used to also take multivitamins whilst eating there's anything which meant health, I would just take all of it. And I'll be jogging around the park, and I'll be doing squats. But yeah, it really did kind of like shape my whole idea of just being as fit as possible. I think that was my main thing for me. And then I slowly moved over towards bodybuilding, and I'd done some competing for some years. But then after competing, I decided I didn't want to compete on the stage anymore. I love going to the gym. Or just training, but I just felt as though some of that real fitness, which was my foundation, was slightly missing, because I was just more focusing on, aesthetics and I don't know, maybe carb cycling, and not so much on just like micronutrients and like really trying to excel in my health. So that's when I started to move slightly away from the bodybuilding side.